Good evening and welcome to our May week activities for the Indianapolis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. At this time, we'd like to turn the floor over to our iconic president, Dr. Gwendolyn Johnson.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Dr. Whit Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I have the pleasure of serving as president of the iconic Indianapolis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are joined this evening by some amazing guests. We're here because it is beginning of May week. We had a week beginning yesterday with an iconic event, and today we have another iconic event. We are so proud of our May week and the things that we highlight continuously. And especially during this week, we're doing some amazing things and having some interesting and informative conversations under the leadership of our social action chair, Dr. Whit Bailey, and our arts and letters chair, Stacey Moore. And we're just so thankful that we have our state senator, Andrea Hunley, District 40, and Representative Cherrish, Pryor, District 94, who is also our Democratic floor leader. We are really blessed this evening. You all don't know how excited we are to have these women here joining us. We're going to talk about the Indiana General Assembly updates and some outcomes. And so please like and share. This is just the beginning of our week. Please go to our Indy Delta's page, Facebook page, and see all of the wonderful events that we have for the rest of this week that are public events as well. So again, thank you so much for joining our symposium this evening. Dr. Whit Bailey and her committee have done an amazing job of gathering a representative and senator tonight to give us updates and straight off the floor out of the house information that you can use and be informed about the policies and procedures of our government. And so we thank them so much for joining, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Dr. Whit Bailey, back over to you. Oh, and I did say that I am Dr. Gwendolyn Johnson, and I'm honored to be here this evening. Many blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and we are so glad that you are our iconic president. We love the fact that you give us opportunities to do things like this. And this not only helps our sorority, but it helps our community. So thank you very much for allowing us to do this evening. Now, tonight, we've got a lot that's going on, and we're going to pack it all into less than an hour. So we're glad that you're here to join with us to learn more about legislative outcomes and updates that occurred during this legislative session. We found two people that were kind enough to join us, two great people. We have a freshman, and I call that person a freshman, and a person that is a seasoned veteran legislator that's here with us tonight. But we are a part of the Social Action Committee of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And so we want to take time to make sure that we bring political awareness, not only to our sorority and our chapter, but to our community. And in this case, it's the Indianapolis community. And we want to make sure that we understand about advocacy for critical issues. We want people to know that we work with voter registration, that we want to educate people on public issues and public concerns. And this is what we're going to do tonight. We want to be educated. We want to be informed about what it is that has happened in this last legislative session. Right now, I will take some time to introduce the two wonderful people that are here with us this evening. The first one is Senator Andrea Hunley from District 46. She is a lifelong Hoosier, and she went to Indiana University. She actually taught English on Indy's West Side in one of the largest high schools in our state. And then she went on to serve as a principal for 10 years. She has her master's degree in language education and a bachelor's in secondary education, and holds a PK-12 school administrator license. She's originally from Fort Wayne, and she was in the foster care system and adopted at a young age. And supporting vulnerable children and families is a priority for her. She has experienced the joys and challenges of small business ownership and the importance of creative economy with her husband of 15 years, Ryan. I met Senator Hunley in Hoosier Women Forward. We both shared in the same class 2 of Hoosier Women Forward, and we're glad to have you this evening.
Thank
We
you
also
so
have,
much.
sure, we also have our veteran legislator, State Representative Cherrish Pryor from District 94. And as Dr. Johnson shared with us, she is also the Democratic floor leader for the state of Indiana. She has served as a legislator in the Indiana House of Representatives since 2008. You're not that old. She is currently the Indiana House Democrat Caucus floor leader and is a member of the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus. She's also a member of the Budget Writing Ways and Means Committee, as well as the Elections and Apportionment Committee and the Utilities, Energy, and Telecommunications Committees. Her previous positions include Chief Deputy for the Marion County Treasurer's Office, Real Estate Manager for Marion County Auditor's Office, Lobbyist for the Greater Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce, Program Director for the State Student Assistance Commission, and Legislative Assistant for the Indiana House of Representatives. Representative Pryor also serves as the chairperson of Hoosier Women Forward and treasurer of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators and state director for both the National Foundation of Women Legislators and the Women Legislators Lobby. In 2015, she was named one of 4 Legislators of the Year by Indiana Farm Bureau and a member of the governing magazine's Women in Government 2015 class. She has done so much for this community, and whenever there's a cause or something that's out there that people need to know about, we will see Representative Pryor, and we're so glad that you are going to spend time with us this evening sharing some information.
Thank you.
So now we're going to kind of get into the meat of things here, and what we probably need to know is, how do we deal with understanding the legislative process? It's not that people just sit in a room and you vote on something and then you're done. There's a long process. Can one of you help, or both of you help us to understand what that process is and how we get to the point where a bill finally ends up being signed?
So I just shared my screen here like a true teacher. I can't help myself having a slide deck. But Representative Pryor, would you like to voice over the role of state representatives, and then we'll go from there?
Yes, so the role of a state representative is to, we fight for the people. We are assigned to various committees. We also have interim study committees as well. We meet when we're in session. And session starts in January of each year. Long session is from January to April. Short session is January to about mid-March. But we're assigned to committees during that time, and we hear bills and pass legislation. We have floor debates. We vote on things. We have amendments. And then we act as liaisons between various groups and individuals, and always representing our district, as well as fighting for what we feel is in the best interest of the state of Indiana. Not only, I think it's important for people to know that as legislators, our first priority certainly is our district, but as legislators, the majority, quite frankly, of the policies that we vote on affect everybody in the state of Indiana. So we always keep that in mind. But as Senator Hunley and I are members of the Black Caucus, we also make sure that we're looking out for the African American community, as well as other marginalized communities as well. This includes other races, as well as individuals who are disabled and seniors. We, as a Black Caucus, always say that we are the heartbeat and the soul and the conscience of the legislature, because we continually fight for those individuals as well. So that's just the role of a state representative.
And so the state senators do the same piece just on the other side. And there are 100 representatives, each serving 2-year terms. This is your refresher from civics class. And then there are 50 senators. And so I'm one of 50. There are 10 of us in the Democratic caucus that I'm a part of. And we serve 4-year terms. And this year our session did end. Our session ended at 3 in the morning on April 29th, which was no one prepared me, for many things, but that was one of them. But there are, you can see how many bills were filed this year. So there were 648 bills filed in the House and 489 bills filed in the Senate, which means that we rely on each other a lot to make sure that we understand all pieces of the legislation. I am so grateful that we have a team of not only lawyers in the State House that help us, but also our smaller caucuses like the Black Legislative Caucus, so that we can understand the nuances of every piece of legislation. And then constituents. I mean, that's where you all come in, is if you see something in a piece of legislation and you think, wow, this is how this is going to impact my specific community or my job or, my house of worship or pieces like that, to reach out and let us know, because we are not experts in any stretch of the imagination. We are there to be your representatives, to be your voice, but we are not experts. And so there's a big journey to a bill becoming a law. And I think that the key takeaway that I want you to know is that there are many opportunities for input. There are many opportunities for a bill to change, for a bill to be amended, and for a bill to die as well throughout that entire process. But I don't know, Representative Pryor, if there's anything that you want to highlight in the process of how a bill becomes a law. I would say that the piece that I have found to be a great opportunity is on second reading amendments. So after something has come out of committee, there is also an opportunity where we can propose additional amendments onto a bill to change it before we vote on it the third time, and then send it over into the other house. Because in Indiana, we are a bicameral legislature. So a bill has to be passed in the House and then move to the Senate, be passed in the Senate, sent back to the House for approval, and vice versa, before it can become law.
Yeah, and I would just add, in this process, it's kind of like making sausage, and you don't necessarily want to see what that looks like. And what is on the screen is really a snapshot of a bunch of the nuances that we go through in the process, from the first reading, a bill being signed, to committee. And the committee is what we consider the workhorse for that bill. So anything, we try to get the bill as good as it can get in committee. There's opportunities to have amendments added to the bill. Sometimes we don't catch things, or even sometimes people in our community, as Senator Hunley stated, may come up with an idea, and we may have an opportunity for it to be amended into the bill in committee. If not in committee, sometimes on the floor. The bill then goes to the opposite side of the legislature. So the Senate bills go to the House bills go to the Senate. We always want to make sure that if there's a bill that we support, that committee chair gives that bill a hearing. If the bill gets a hearing and is passed the other chamber, there are several options that bill has. Either the person that had the bill in the Senate or the House, they can concur. And a concurrence means, I agree with all the changes that you made in the other chamber, and I'm going to sign off on that, and that bill then goes to the governor. But oftentimes what happens is there is a dissent, and dissent means I don't agree with those changes that happen. And when you don't agree with those changes, then it goes to a conference committee. And the conference committee is a place where, if a bill didn't get a hearing in the Senate or the House, that language is still alive. And so that's why we always say nothing is dead until we adjourn, sine die. Because if something has passed one chamber, then it's always eligible for to be included in the conference committee. And a lot of bills that died, or a lot of people that have language that they want to get added into a bill, that stuff gets added in the conference committee. At that particular point, the bill goes, if it gets the majority of the vote in the House and the Senate, it goes to the governor for signature. At that time, the governor can either veto the bill, he can sign the bill, or the governor can do nothing. And if the governor does nothing, then it becomes law because nothing was done to the bill. If the governor does veto a bill, we can come back in during our technical correction day, and either we can sustain the veto or we can override the veto. And those simply take a simple majority. So everything in the legislature either passes or fails with a simple majority in the House and in the Senate.
So the other piece we want to highlight for you all is how to stay informed. And we can drop this in the chat for you. But this IGA website, iga.in.gov, is your place to find everything. You can search bills by keyword. So if you're interested in education, or if you're interested in taxes, you can search by keyword. You can find information about your legislator. You can watch all session and committee hearings are all recorded and or streamed live when they're happening live, that you can go to the site and see them. This is also where you sign up to testify. You can come in and testify on a bill. So you can sign up on the morning that a bill is going to be heard in committee and come in and testify. And this is the way that you can track what's happening. So we just want to make sure that you knew about that. And then I know the big question today is how to be involved. And I've got to tell you that, contacting your legislators really is important. And Representative Pryor is so great about getting back to people and so kind about the way that you take care of constituents. And so I have learned a lot from you this year, Representative Pryor, and how you do that. But we really do work hard to make sure that we are responsive to your needs, and that if we can't help, or our legislative assistants can't help, then we'll find the people who can. And then coming in to testify in committee or providing written testimony, you all are the experts in your fields. And it's important that we hear directly from you how these bills will impact. There was an amendment that was put on a bill because it would impact 2 people in one community in Indiana. And an entire amendment was put onto a bill, because of that reason. And I say that because there are ways that you can have your voice heard. Sometimes it doesn't always feel that way, but it really is true. And then tracking those bills, of course, that are important. And writing your op-eds. We read the paper. We have staff that read the local newspapers that are looking for how people are feeling about issues, to make sure that we know the pulse of the community. And so definitely putting your voice out there in those ways, and not just being on Facebook writing in the comments, but actually looking at some of our papers of record to make sure that you are getting your voice heard that way. And then, of course, making sure that we vote in every single election, every single time, especially in our primaries. It is important that we all vote. And then we'll drop this in for you too, so you know how to get a hold of the members of the Black Legislative Caucus as well. I'll stop sharing my screen there.
Such rich information. Would you be willing to share that slide deck with us so that we can get that out to our constituents? It would be very helpful for us to continue to share that information. So thank you. I have a couple of questions just based on what you shared. Representative Pryor, you mentioned something about a technical correction day. How long does that actually take?
The technical correction day is just scheduled for a day. It probably won't last more than 2 hours. It doesn't last long at all. Generally, I will say this, our staff is very efficient. We have our legislative staff, and we also have legislative services as well. So they already have many things that we need prepared on that day. So we, when we go in, if there is a bill, generally it's just one bill that we will hear that has a bunch of technical corrections, just things that may need to be cleaned up that clearly express the intent of the legislature. And then if there are overrides that we need to do because the governor has vetoed something, then we will do that as well. I will say that is the intent of Technical Corrections Day. But if the Republican Party, and I won't get political, but the Republicans are then the supermajority, but if they choose to add something additional to the agenda, it is very possible that they can add an additional bill to the agenda. But the purpose of the Technical Correction Day is truly to address things that are technical in nature based on a bill. We may pass two bills that may have conflicting language. So we may have to come back and address those type of issues. That is the purpose of it, but to do the overrides. But it's quite possible that we can have additional things, one or two other bills that we have to address, depending on things that may have happened in the state or at the national level that the Republicans might want to address.
Thank you. Thank you. And Senator Hunley, you mentioned in your comments that there were 648 bills filed in the House and 489 filed in the Senate. That just seems like so much reading. And help us to know what that looks like.
Well, first, not every bill gets a hearing. So just because it was filed, it doesn't mean that it gets assigned to a committee. I'm on 8 different committees. I won't name every single one of them, but education and utilities, transportation, and veterans affairs were some of my big committees. And so each week we might be hearing 4 or 5 bills in committee, and each bill, could be from 3 pages to 45 pages, some of them 100 pages, just depends on what the bill is doing. And being a freshman, I read everything line by line. Also being an English teacher, it's just par for the course. So I, read through, but that doesn't mean I understood it all. And I don't want to pretend like I did by any stretch of the imagination. But what it meant is that I knew what questions I wanted to make sure that I asked ahead of time, and to either our lawyers on staff or to some of the lobbyists who are really knowledgeable about certain topics that are their areas of expertise. And then also in committee, as people come in to testify, then we can also ask them questions. And so it's a lot of information, definitely a lot of information to get through, but we do have a lot of support to help us understand it all.
Wonderful. Well, that's a good segue to the next question. And I'd like for both of you to answer it. From your perspective, Senator Hunley, what is it like to be a freshman legislator? You were just elected just this last year, I believe. And then Representative Pryor, you've been in the legislature for quite a while. And so talk to us about what it feels like to be brand new and what it feels like to be a veteran and be involved for quite some time.
Well, I'll tell you, being a school principal for the past 10 years and leading my own staff of 50 and having my own, 450 students that I was in charge of every day, where every day I walked in, I knew exactly what was going to happen for the day because I created the schedule. And I also was in charge. It was really different for me because when I walk in that state house, I am not in charge, and I'm not even in charge of my own schedule for the day. Committee meetings will get changed, other meetings will get added on. And so it was a lot of me having to retrain my brain on what it means to kind of work in the name of service. I thought that I knew how to do that well. But it's also just incredibly, incredibly humbling. When I walk in every morning, I pause for a moment of gratitude underneath the big stained glass, that's our beautiful dome that we have. And I just never want to kind of lose the feeling that I had my first day walking in, which was that it is such a privilege to be able to do this work. I'm one of 50 people that gets to do the work that I do, and to serve the community, and that people have entrusted me with that. And so it's important that I frame myself in that mindset each day, because it gets really hard. But I also was surprised by the relationships that get built. I think that in the news, we hear a lot about the discord, a lot about the tension, that's happening. We hear about the bad bills. We want to ban every book. We want to arm every teacher with a gun, right? We hear about the bad bills. But But I think that what was surprising for me is seeing the way that relationships are formed and forming relationships of my own with people whose ideologies do not match mine on some issues, but do on others, and seeing where we can connect and where we can work together, was really a neat piece for me. And then also knowing that like we can disagree, we can be really really angry with each other and disagree vehemently at the microphone, and then still be okay when we walk to the elevator together, to ride down, and still be able to talk about areas where we can come back together. But everything has just been really humbling, I would say. And I have even more gratitude for the folks who have been doing this work, and who walked alongside me, like Representative Pryor, for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Representative Pryor, from your perspective.
From my perspective, some of the same things I think Senator Hunley has stated. It is just amazing and appreciative. I'm very appreciative that, my constituents vote for me and support me and continue to send me back, because it is an honor to be one of 100 individuals. But as I walk through the chamber or the state house, there's three things that I always keep in mind for me. I'm in a minority 3 times over, being a Democrat, being in the super minority. I'm not just minority, quite frankly, a super minority. Being a super minority because I'm a Democrat, being a super minority because I am a woman, and then being a super minority because I am an African American as well. And so those are the things that always stay in my mind. And as I am thinking about legislation, making sure that I'm keeping all those things in perspectives, particularly as a woman in a minority, making sure that I'm doing the best that I can and using my voice consistently to speak up for those individuals. And the media does show a bunch of the negativity. Some of that may be from DC. Some of it is, things that have happened here in Indiana and even in the legislature in Indiana as well. But keeping in mind that there are opportunities to build relationships with legislators, and whether they are Democrats or Republicans, Black, white, there's opportunities for that to happen. But also knowing that even within that space, the one thing that I have that no one can take away from me is my voice. And when I say my voice, I mean that I can always speak in committees. So I always make sure that I am prepared when I go to committees and that I understand the bills that are before me and asking the appropriate questions to the right people. And then also my voice when we go into full session, standing up, speaking the truth and the truth to power, quite frankly, and letting people know what is happening in the communities that I represent. And because even though I may be in a super minority 3 times over, the one thing that I can do is stand there and use my voice as an advocacy piece for the people who sent me there and for people who need a voice in the legislature. But it is a wonderful opportunity, and quite frankly, some of the relationships that I've built with people is just amazing. We have my class, I think it's maybe 5 of us left now, but every year we have a class dinner, and it's 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans that are left in my class. And so we get together with our pictures of all the people who came in with us. or who served at that time. And we just have a good time. It's not about Democrat, Republican. It's just about having a good time. And that is one of the things that I look forward to each year, my opportunity to sit down and break bread with my colleagues.
Wow. And that's what we don't get to see. The community doesn't see or hear about that. So thank you for sharing that with us. Both of you actually talking about how you can go across the aisle. You know, that's the terminology that's used, but you actually gave real examples of how it actually does happen. It's not just something you say, it really is something that you do. And thank you again for being advocates for us and being our voice there, because of course you're one of 50 or one of 100 to represent your districts as well as the state of Indiana. So we thank you for that. So as you represent us, there, like you said, there are a lot of bills. All of them didn't make their way through, but some of them did. Some of them didn't. We've heard about some of them in the news. And so what I'd like for you to do for us is give us some of the highlights of this session. This was, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was considered a long session, right? So it was a long session. And so if you could just tell us, you know, some of the bills that you think we might be interested in, that may have passed, maybe some controversy around them, and help us to know, you know, where we are now in the process.
So you want me to start, Senator Hunley?
Sure, go for it. I'll jump in.
Okay. So I'll just maybe start out with House Bill 1001. And I'm not going to get into the education stuff because I know Senator Hunley, she's an educator. That is not my area at all. And she is an expert at that. So I will start out with House Bill 1001. In House Bill 1001, that is our budget year. And each long session, we constitutionally have to pass a budget. And that has to generate in the House. Any bill that generates revenue has to begin in the House. And this year we passed a budget that was between, I think, $38 billion, which is a significant, with a B. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But we'll still have billions, several billions of dollars in the budget, even spending that much money over the next 2 years. And that covers the entire state budget. We found a significant portion, almost half of our budget does go to education, whether it's K through 12 and also funding our state colleges and universities. That would be Ivy Tech, IU, Vincennes, University of Southern Indiana, Ball State, Purdue. I know I'm forgetting a couple of them, but we fund those as well. And this year, not only do we fund education, what we also funded was an increase in Medicaid reimbursements. So the individuals that may come to your house to take care of your loved ones, in Ways and Means, we heard from a lot of people who were saying, you know, we have not increased these reimbursements for years, and we're having problems taking care of individuals because people don't want to provide services because we're not getting enough money. So we had those reimbursement rates that are going to increase. What we did not fund, and we wanted to, as Democrats and as Black Caucus, was to fully fund the governor's request for the healthcare initiatives that the governor's task force had requested. So we did provide some of that funding, but we did not fully fund that funding. So we were concerned about that. The advocates, there were a lot of advocates that were wanting to get money, a lot of money, and they should have for mental health issues. We did fund that somewhat. We did not fund that at the level that we wanted to have that funded at. Traditionally, we have always, quite frankly, given a 13th check. As you know, 52 weeks out of the year, and sometimes you have the extra week. And so generally we have always funded the that 13th check for individuals. This year, we did not fund the 13th check, which was a major disappointment for our retired teachers and state employees. So we were very disappointed with that. We were also disappointed that we also did not give them a cost of living increase. A couple of years ago, we gave a cost of living increase, didn't give the 13th check, which quite frankly, since I've been in the legislature, we've always given the 13th check. And one year we gave the cost of living increase. This year we didn't do anything. So there are about 90,000 people who are not going to get that additional money. And while it may be small to some of us, it's significant for those individuals who rely on that money each year. The one thing that I will talk about from the education standpoint that was in the House is the 21st Century Scholars Program, because I worked for that program. We will now have automatic enrollment in that program, which is significant for low-income students. And that bill was carried by actually the chair of the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus, Representative Earl Harris. And so that was one of the agenda items that the Black Caucus had this year. We always have an agenda, and that was on our agenda. And so we did pass that, and I was really happy about that. The other bill from the House standpoint is a bill dealing with bullying. Representative Verna Smith had a bill that will help young people who are in school who are dealing with bullying. That did pass. Representative Greg Porter was on a bill dealing with dementia. And as you know, we have seniors that get older. They're dealing with issues. And so we did get a bill dealing with a dementia pass as well. And that was one of the initiatives that Senator Greg Porter had. And Senator Representative Carolyn Jackson out of Lake County, Hammond, Indiana, she had a bill and she's been really focused on lead-based water, lead in water. And this year we were able to pass a bill that will require more testing of schools. Water in schools, because if they're drinking water and there's lead in the water, that has a lot to deal with and affects their ability for growth and for their health. And so she's been on the forefront of that, and she was able to get that piece of legislation passed. So we had some Black Caucus members over in the House that were successful in getting some of their legislation passed, and we were excited about that.
Yeah, a couple highlights that I'll hit on are we were able to make some steps with the FAFSA. So part of this, it goes hand in hand with the 21st Century Scholars piece, that we really want to make sure that students have all of their options available to them when they graduate from high school. And so now it'll be mandated that students complete that federal application for free student financial aid their senior year of high school, which also then means that the schools need to be supporting students in doing that. And so we're hoping that that will help increase our post-secondary attainment, that college going rate. We also, on the education space, a positive is creating more access to transcripts. We found that colleges and universities were withholding transcripts if students still had outstanding student debt to the university. And so we were saying that you can't get a job if they're holding your transcript. And so it's kind of this chicken or egg piece. And so we were able to make some headway with that. Also on the healthcare side, with long-acting reversible contraceptives, so these are known as LARCs, we were able to expand access to those for folks who are on Medicaid so that they can get them more quickly and more easily. So that is going to, of course, support with maternal health, which is important, so that folks do not become pregnant when they don't want to. So that will be a big piece for us. And then the SB one was big, our behavior health matters. And the lower the number a bill is, the more of a priority it is for that chamber. And so for mental health matters to be the priority bill for the Senate is a big deal. And the senator who championed that bill has been working on this for over 10 years. And so that will help with a few different things. We'll be able to help with our 988 crisis hotline. So that you can call 988 or anyone who's in a mental health crisis. Also providing confidential and emotional support there. And then working on our crisis response teams as well, so that we can have expanded support, so that it's not just a police officer that shows up when we have folks who are in mental health crises, but that we have trained professionals who are coming. Some bills that were not good, some bills that were harmful. I do want to just share a couple. So we proposed bills to increase the minimum age to carry a handgun. That's been shown to reduce gun violence when you can increase the minimum age to 21. That bill did not even get a hearing, let alone pass. I had a bill to help expand school-based health centers so that we can get more health supports into our schools, which many other states are doing, and that bill did not get a hearing. Senator Taylor has been working hard on bone marrow donor registry and recruitment program, and that is something that's really important, especially in our minority communities, because we know that the bone marrow bank for Black folks is much smaller. The likelihood that we will get a match is much less than white folks in the community, and so we really need to get some support around that. And then we also had a bill to do a hunger-free campus grant program that will help. We know that kind of two ends of the spectrum, seniors and students are malnourished. And so we were able to get a bill passed that will expand some of our food programming and make it easier for seniors and folks with disabilities to access SNAP benefits. But we were not able to do that at the college level. And so that's something that we're working on still, how we can get to hunger-free campuses. And then the education piece. So I do want to say there were a couple bills that were harmful to education. One was SB 486, and that further diminishes teachers' collective bargaining rights, their voice, to have that collective unionized voice. And we know that right now, support for unions is at one of its highest points that it's been in our country in decades. And yet, the Indiana legislature still chose to take away union voice and union bargaining rights for teachers. And then the other is around funding. We had a bill that will now require public school districts in certain areas to share their tax referendum dollars with the charter schools in their community. And this is not about school type. I am pro school choice. I think parents need to have choice on where they send their children. I also think that we need to have accountability for our tax dollars. We need to know exactly where every dollar is spent and where it's going. And so the problem there is that not every school type is held to the same level of transparency and accountability. And charter schools don't have elected boards. They don't have to report out in the same way. And so I'm very concerned about us putting more taxpayer dollars into systems that have not been proven. And then there was also our book banning bill, which we've already seen. I just saw in the newspaper that a library in Hamilton County is spending over $300,000 to audit and move books in their library because they are worried about being sued under what has become House Bill 1447, but started as Senate Bill 12. So that's the way that bills kind of can come together towards the end of session. But it's really a bill that's designed to intimidate librarians to make sure that that they're not putting out material that could be considered quote unquote harmful to minors. And so that's one that definitely is having a chilling effect on our school libraries and on our public libraries. I'm very concerned about that. There was a lot of legislation that moved through. I do want to say that there were a couple celebrations for this freshman. And one is that I had a bill around pedestrian safety. That's something that's very important to me. I represent a part of, downtown Indianapolis. It's a highly walkable community. Many people walk or take the bus or cycle. And we also have the highest number of pedestrian deaths out of anywhere in the state. And so while my bill passed the Senate, it didn't get a hearing in the House, but we were able to take the language and fold it into another bill. There's that process. And so I was able to benefit from that, which is that we will be studying and looking into what's referred to as Vision Zero tactics to look at how we can get down to zero pedestrian deaths. And then the other piece is that I was able to advocate for in the budget to double the amount of funding that we had been giving to food banks, and so that was doubled. So I'm proud that we were able to do that piece as well.
This is a
And
lot of work. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I
Representative.
just mention a couple more things that I was sitting here and thought about? In the budget bill, we also allocated about almost $1 billion going to vouchers. And vouchers, and it's called school choice, but that is a significant amount of money that will now go towards individuals who have the money that can afford to pay for their kids to go to college. And I think the income threshold is like almost $250,000. So if you make up to $250,000, you can now get a voucher to go to a private school. And the concern there is that's taking money away from the traditional schools that are just trying to make it. The other thing is, when I was I've been on Ways and Means since I've been a legislator. And one of the things that the advocates were saying when they were introducing the idea and the concept of vouchers and school choice was that we want to give low income and poor families and minority families a way to go to a private school and they don't have the money. That's just gone by the wayside now. Because $250,000 is not low income. And the median income for low income and minority families is nowhere near $250,000. And so it's really not about helping poor kids get out of the situation or get out of the school that they are in, maybe a low performing school going to a private school. So that's no longer the case anymore. The other thing that Senator Hunley had mentioned was about the charter schools and now the referendum sharing. I just want to mention that it's only for certain counties. It's not for all 92 counties. It's only for the counties that has a significant number of African American and minority students in those counties. So Lake, Allen County, Marion County, Vanderburgh. Not Allen. I'm sorry. I thought they changed it and added Allen in there.
They did.
And you all got it out.
And then they took it. And then they took it out.
Yep. So that's the that's the sausage being made.
Yeah.
Huh?
Which is one of our largest counties.
It is, and a significant number of Blacks that live in Allen County. But the counties that have to do that revenue sharing are counties that have a significant number of minorities in there. Now, I don't think Allen County has that many charter schools, so that may be the reason why it was easier to get that out. But Lake County and in Marion County, we have a large percentage of charter schools in them. The other thing too that I wanted to mention was, as we drive around our communities, some of you may not be in Marion County, but if you come to Marion County, Indianapolis, there's a lot of potholes everywhere. We were able to get a bill that changes the funding formula that the state uses to allocate money to communities, so that Indianapolis will now get an additional 8 to 9 million more dollars for its roads and infrastructure. That is a good thing that we have passed that came out this session.
So there's a lot for us to know and to learn and to try to understand. So where is the repository, I'll call it that, for all of the bills that have passed, so that if we want to look by category or by region of the state of Indiana, or by gender, how do we find this?
Well, the PowerPoint that Senator Hunley had pulled up, I think it had a link to the General Assembly's website, and every bill that is passed is on there. There are two things that I do want to point out to people, though. Either when you look at the bill, you have the bill number, but everything is also divided by various categories as far as the committees that we have as well. But you'll want to look at that particular bill number and look at the bill action and see what happened to that bill to make sure that bill actually did pass. Yeah. And then it will have in House Enrolled Acts are enacted. And so that's what you'll want to pull up. And then you also want to see if there is a conference committee report that was adopted, because if a bill goes through the conference committee process, it will be a conference committee report that gets adopted that will be enacted and become law. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So we've learned so much. My head is spinning. It's just wonderful information, helpful information. It will allow us to run even further to learn more about each of the things that you shared. And so because we're all close to our time, I'd like for each of you to give us some closing comments, but then tell us how we can help you. How can we, as members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, or the general greater Indianapolis area, or residents of the state of Indiana, help you? And let's start with Senator Hunley.
Well, thank you again so much for having us this evening and for being engaged. I mean, I think that is the critical piece. And what I would leave you with is that I think it's so important that when we legislate for future generations. And of course, that is a mindset that I carry with me as a mom. It's a mindset that I carry with me as a teacher, but it's also a mindset that I carry with me as someone who is a child of all of my ancestors, who wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for all of the work that people put in for generations before me so that I could be doing this. And so I say that to say that every action that you take is so critical, whether that's mentoring, whether that's putting yourself on the ballot, whether that's knocking on a door for a candidate, whether that's coming out to vote. That each of those pieces has generational impact, and you have to remember that you're not just doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for all of us and for everyone who will come after. And we need to remember that we have the weight of that responsibility on each and every one of us. And so I would say the key is to vote. And the other piece too, I want everybody to run. Everybody needs to put their name on the ballot. Everybody needs to be running. I think that we need to make sure that we don't leave any race uncontested. There are so many races, whether it is for your town council or, so many that go uncontested. And so we need to make sure we're running strong people. But if it's not going to be you on the ballot, finding a candidate that you're excited about and making sure that you support them and donate. It takes money to run campaigns. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say to donate, whether it's $25 or whether it's 25 times that, whatever you can give, I think is important to also remember. But do your due diligence. And every time you come to the polls, you need to make sure that everybody in your network also has their vote plan to do the exact same.
Very good. Thank you. Representative Pryor.
Yes. Thank you all for having this. I appreciate you inviting us to participate. just a couple of things I want to reiterate and then state some new things. Run and volunteer on campaigns as well. Candidates need money. We also need volunteers as well. So, those things are really, really important. And then we also have not just a Black Caucus, but legislators sign up for our e-blast. We get information about different activities and events. And I, maybe once or twice a week or every other week, I'm sending out an e-blast, letting people in my district or whoever's on my list, making people aware of what's going on in the community or sometimes even around the state on issues. So that's really, really important in it, just a quick, easy way to be engaged in the process. We also have surveys that we send out before session starts. I would tell people to, don't throw those away, to make sure you fill those out and send those back in. I read whatever someone writes on their survey that they send back to me. I always read it and I will respond back to them. If they have a question, I always respond back to every single one. I sign each one individually and I respond individually to those. The other thing is, you all came to the State House this year. You've done that several years. Continue to do that and continue to call your legislators and let them know your position on issues. Is so important that people see people that look like us at the State House and not just the 15 members of the Black Caucus. It is so critical. I love it when different organizations come to the State House, and then to have, to see that somebody's there to look like me. That's just even better. And then the last thing, I have to give a shameless plug for the Black Caucus that Senator Hunley and I are members of. But we have town halls each year, and we've been having them for maybe 6 or 7 years now. We are going to have town halls again this year. Some of them, we started out doing them in person. We did 6 to 7 locations around the state from the north to the south. We don't even have people in Evansville, but we always make sure that we go to Evansville because we have Black folk that are down there. And even though there's not a Black legislator down there, we still have to look out for people that are down there as well, not taken away from their legislator who, look out for their constituents. But it's important to us to have visibility around the state. And so we're going to be having those town halls again this year, some of them in public. We may do some also on Zoom, but we would ask for you all to participate in those as well.
Wonderful. Yes, we would love to participate in them, whether it's virtual or in person. So we need to sign up for the e-blast. So that's our
Absolutely
to do that. Yes. So what I have to say is, on behalf of the Indianapolis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, thank you so much. Thank you for helping us to learn more and understand more, and for your commitment and your willingness to serve. I could have listened to you for another hour and trying to get all of this information in, but my job now is to turn the mic, the virtual mic, over to our chairperson of Arts and Letters, Stacy Moore, who will close us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Soar with Bailey, and thank you to our Representative Pryor and to our Senator Hunley for your taking time out today to educate us and truly educate us. And Soar Pryor can smile about that. That's just a little thing we have going. So that we certainly do appreciate you both. And I do ask that you put, hopefully we can have access to the slide presentation. And then also, can you give us information as to recent legislation that passed? And you said there's recent place where we can go to look at what legislation is up, what bills are up, what's going on, how can we have a voice, where can we go, where can we look, what's the website? And that information is very helpful, and we would love if you could share the website and what we can do as individuals, whether it be as a sorority or as an individual. What can we do to help our community to make a difference? Because some of the legislation, as you said, recently passed is concerning. I won't speak on which one, but it is concerning, as you had indicated. So we certainly want to be a voice collectively or individually to see what we can do and how we can speak out and help to make our voice heard. So thank you again very much to taking time out of your day and your evening and separating yourselves from your families. So that is greatly appreciated. And thank you to all those who joined us this evening for this social action event. We look forward to you continuing to join us for May Week as we continue on. We had a play yesterday, we had social action today, and then tomorrow we will have finance, an event with our financial fortitude that the national headquarters is heading up. And then on Wednesday, we will have Wellness Wednesday. We will talk about how healthy we want you to be and, concern for your health or any questions that you may have. And then Thursday, we want to give a big thank you to our SOAR at Newfields for opening up the doors of Newfields for our SOARs. It's SOARs and guests only. So unfortunately, if you are tuning in and you are not a SOAR, I'm sorry. But I'm quite sure Newfields would say, come on any other day. You just can't come on Thursday. So, and then on Friday, we will be highlighting our scholarship winners. And congratulations to those scholarship winners who will get the Indianapolis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated that will be getting scholarships. And then on Saturday, we will close it out with our Too Blessed to Be Stressed as we discuss mental health, which I think there was a recent guideline or recent legislation that passed as a result of that. We will be talking about mental health. As we know, it is a big concern in our community, whether it be as a family or as an individual, or and even as our officials talk about it, or even as our law enforcement talks about it. So again, that will be Saturday, followed up by a great conclusion of yoga, which after this wonderful week, we may need a little yoga. So thank you, SOAR, again, so much as SOAR Terry Wood Bailey for your commentating this evening. And again, to Representative Pryor and to Senator Hunley. You are greatly appreciated. Continue to do the work that you do and go conquer.